Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you're all well on this amazing, beautiful, wonderful, marvelous Monday. You're looking marvelous, by the way. Good. I hope you have a fantastic week. And we're going to get straight into the meat and potatoes, as a lot of people have been reaching out to me. I think a lot of people thought that I'd bloody vanished. I've been here. We've just been covering the Jay Slater case. But obviously, there's still people who are watching the Idaho 4. They're keeping their eyes on it. And look, why I haven't really spoken about the Idaho 4 case is purely because I feel that even though there's a lot of things that we can talk about, there isn't really any movement on the case. And I feel that what we now have to be aware of is that there will be attempts to force content. There will be potentially angles where people will try to fabricate stuff. Do you know what I mean? In order to boost views on that, because for a long time the Idaho 4 case was garnering a lot of views, a lot of attention, and there will be people who are feeling the pinch. We've just seen T-Rev being called out, for instance. This channel here, Unsupervised Maniacs, which apparently this was to do with the Stephen Stearns situation. He got his mate to call him, pretending to be a mate of Stephen Stearns. There's text between him and his mate laughing and saying they will get the millions of views. Scamming off a girl that was killed is despicable. I don't know the truth behind that, but this is a video. If you're interested in going to watch that, head over to Unsupervised Maniacs and go check it out. And we have seen it previously. There was that Morris guy. He also fabricated audio in the Idaho 4 case, and that kind of exploded, which have ended up with him coming off the platform and then coming back on the platform and continuing where he left off. So, yeah, you have to be careful. At this juncture in the Idaho 4 case, we're in this strange void where we're waiting for the trial to start. The trial date is the 2nd of June. We do have a hearing on the 28th of August, which will hopefully conclude with it being confirmed that there will be a change of venue, but they have stated that even if there is a change of venue, their plan is to retain the date for the trial. So at this point in time, it would seem the trial is going to start on the 2nd of June 2025 and is going to run for approximately 3 months, which will include jury selection and any sentencing phase towards the end if indeed Brian Kohberger is found guilty. But a lot of you have reached out. You've reached out and asked me to comment on the stuff that is out there at the moment. I know Jay Ombre is doing videos pretty much every day. He's digging deep into what he can find. And I think that what we're learning through people digging deep into this is that the deeper you look into Moscow, Idaho as a whole, there are problems in Moscow, Idaho. And it kind of becomes to a point where it makes a lot of sense why Brian Kohberger could indeed simply be a patsy. Because I think that what people have to understand about this area, and we have touched on this, is that a small ripple can have a massive effect on the way that this area runs. You know, if that crime was to do with the college, for instance, if it happened to be a student, then it would have a huge ripple effect. We saw after this crime took place that there was a plummet in attendance at the university, as there was a lot of there were people who were scared. You know, the fact that someone had apparently gone into this house and done this crime, and, you know, it scared a lot of people. Now, if there was also a situation where it proved that this was hiding an even deeper issue, like a narcotics issue that involved not only the law enforcement, but the university as well, and there was a situation where people were benefiting off of the nefarious activities in this area, then that would have an explosive reaction. So, you know, it does make sense that this outsider, Brian Kohberger, was the guy that got fingered for it. Does that make sense? You know, I have not seen enough evidence to convict Brian Koberger of this crime. But what I have seen is a huge attempt to make him look like the person who did it. I have watched that the people around this crime, like especially law enforcement and especially the prosecution, have very strategically managed to gag everything, but then weaponize other pieces of information that is gone out. Now, they have had to kind of, in the court itself, they've had to announce that things like stalking were not true. They've had to do that because once you're inside that courtroom, then things have to be done correctly. You know, they have to be done. And we've seen things like Payne, for instance. He has been very strategic in the way that he has spoken about things around this crime as well, where if he is asked a question, then he will answer that question in a way that doesn't hold him to what he's giving as an answer in order to, you know, he's protecting himself from perjury. And he's doing that strategically. He's doing that on purpose. And I say to myself, if Brian Koberger was the person who did this crime, there are some very big things that are missing. We're missing the physical, tangible evidence to support what was in the PCA in the first place. We're missing the cell information. We've had this specialist Ray come forward and said that is incomplete. So we've got a situation where the PCA, in effect, is incomplete. They're making a lot of statements, but they're not backing that up with solid, tangible, and complete evidence. We also have a situation where things are being blocked, like Bethany Funk and her statement, and I'm conscious that we're just repeating ourselves, and again, that's kind of why we're not talking about it. We're not going over this case and speaking about it on a daily basis, because I'm just conscious that we're just recycling old stuff. But, you know, the people who are out there and they're doing the graft and they're doing the work and they are uncovering things, again, such as Jay Ombre. Now, I don't agree with everything Jay Ombre says, but what he is being able to pull out is the aforementioned issues that have been around this area for some time. You know, we know that there are situations where the narcotics coming in from overseas, you know, or across borders, get into these areas and they entwine themselves in everything. And that goes from law enforcement to students. And there just happened to be a lot of things that were happening on the peripheral of these victims. And the thing that makes the least sense is Brian Koberger. He does make the least sense. I'm not saying that Brian Koberger didn't do the crime, but he does indeed make the absolute least sense here. There is no connection. They found absolutely nothing in his car, on his person, in his property, in his parents' property that would tie him to this crime. Nothing whatsoever. And we hear that this crime was such a messy, horrible, horrendous scene, but yet he came away from there unscathed. We also know that there's 3 unidentified DNA samples found at the scene, but we do just have this golden goose knife sheath that happens to have Brian Koberger's DNA on it, and it goes to various different channels before they finalise those results, and those results themselves have been hidden behind, you know, legislation that would mean that the public won't have access to that. And we heard at one point that would actually be removed. It wouldn't be used. And I think that's what's happened here. That all they've done is utilize things and planted seeds because they know the seeds are enough. They know that they can weaponize specific pieces of information. As long as they gag other information, there is no balance, then those seeds will just flourish into a field of, you know, it's a story. You know, the Idaho 4 court case will come down to 2 things, and that will be where it's held and whether the jury has been influenced externally by the stuff that is out there, because it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to find somebody around this. And look, if it goes to Boise, if it goes to one of the other states around Moscow, Idaho, or one of the other, parts of Idaho, then you're still going to have people in that area, in those areas, that knows about this case. You'd have to go to another fucking planet to guarantee that you haven't got someone who's been influenced. And how do you know? Do you know what I mean? There's an argument, rarely, that it would be better for the trial to take place in Moscow, Idaho, in Latah County, because there is a disjointed faction of people who are against law enforcement. But then you could say, but is that then biased in favour of Brian Kohberger, no matter what the truth is? So there's that argument. Fair cuts both ways. You've got to have it in a place that doesn't only benefit the victims and could affect Brian Kohberger from a point of fairness, but also it has to be fair for the families. And that's something that I don't think the families even, especially the Gonsalves family, I don't think they even understand, that this has to be fair for them. This process has to go a certain way in order to be fair to the people who lost their lives. And the only way that you can guarantee true justice is through fairness. But like I said, I think that what's happening, you're seeing a lot of content coming out, and it's showing that there are things that were happening around Latah County, around Moscow, Idaho, that kind of points to the fact that Brian Kohberger was an alternative, a viable alternative to allowing people to see what a shit show this area was, and could have potentially had a damaging effect on the community as a whole and their way of life. And when you can talk about money and protecting, certain things or certain people, but when you are talking about protecting just a way of life, protecting a community, and protecting everything from the money to the businesses to the schooling to the education that it provides, everything, what are people willing to do? Do we get this guy? He makes the most sense. Is it possible that they rolled with that? Who knows? Time will tell. Let me know what you think, and I'll catch you all in the next one.